let's shift over to something we need to keep a close eye on as we get active this summer, muscle cramps in our growing athletes. So joining me this morning to share tips on how to avoid those painful feels, Dr. Ashley Brouillette. Doctor, welcome. It's so great to see you. I'm a mom of three. One plays baseball nearly all year round, so I'm very into this topic. And tell us first why muscle cramps happen in kids and teens and they're prevalent.
Yeah, so they can happen for a couple of reasons. Sometimes it's just a new activity or a really intense activity, but then you couple that with dehydration or having a bit of an salt or electrolyte imbalance, and those things can lead those muscles to cramp.
Okay, so what do we do, and what are some tips to help, especially like, you know, our kids are growing, they're growing athletes. What do we need to know?
Right. So the most important thing I can tell people is developing good stretching habits in terms of beforehand. So getting a good warm up in and then stretching. The most common ones that we see in athletes are going to be hamstrings and calves will get tight. So having your kids work on stretching that and developing that routine, we could all use it. But then another thing is going to be hydration, and hydration will really help be preventative for those muscle cramps.
Okay, and I think it's fun too, especially if you have, I mean, any age child, but I have little kids. It's fun to maybe get into a stretching routine with them, make it something the whole family can do.
Yeah, absolutely. There are so many ways online. You can even find like family yoga or family stretches, and it will be fun and kid themed, and that's something that you can do with your family as well.
I love that, Doctor. Establish the habits now. Okay, so if we are doing the things that we're supposed to do, how do we treat the cramps?
Right. So one thing that you want to do is make sure that if you are having cramping, you actually keep moving. The worst thing you can do is stop. So we have people bounce on their toes if their calves are cramping, keep walking and stretching those. You know, sitting down if you're going to continue to be active, like between innings, not a great idea because those muscles will kind of seize up on you. So keeping moving is great, but then massage, things like that are going to help. And again, continuing to hydrate and then adding some salts like a sports drink.
Okay, I was going to ask you about that. Are sports drinks okay, or are some better than others?
Yeah, so that's great. Everybody worries about sports drinks because of the sugar in them. But I tell people that if you're going to do any activity, especially in the heat that's longer than an hour, that's when you start to add those sports drinks in.
Okay.
Less than an hour, you're cool to stick with the water. More than an hour, you should really start to at least somewhat incorporate some of those sports drinks in.
Okay, because I hear, you know, you get on TikTok and everything is going to kill you. And so, you know, but it's so true. And I'm not so much worried about the caloric intake, but I know a lot of people are, and they're always trying to find the like perfect sports drink. So I'm glad that you at least approved that for electrolyte balance and all of those things. Okay, what do we do then if we're trying all the things that you're saying, we're hydrating, but the muscle cramps aren't going away?
Right. So the one thing we worry about if kids are cramping and they're not getting better, there's actually sometimes where you exercise so intensely that you can actually get muscle breakdown. And if despite hydration that muscle is still really tight and cramped, sometimes you may actually need to go see a doctor to make sure they're not having too much muscle breakdown, that it's a dangerous thing.
Okay, so pay attention to your body. If it's still bothering you, get it checked out. What is something I can do too, Doctor, as a parent to kind of help my growing athlete and foster their love of the sport, but also keep them safe?
Right. So I tell people when you're starting a new sport, make sure you're working your way in, taking your time, especially if it's a new outdoor sport, getting used to the heat. And then like we've been talking about, making those new habits early. You know, different sized water bottles can help to make sure that they're doing the right things, that they know and have a visual cue, because half the time we don't know what we're drinking or taking in during the day. But keeping them safe is going to be making sure you're not getting overheated and making sure you're staying hydrated.
Okay, I love that. We're getting everyone hydrated this morning on A&C. Is there a certain water bottle that you prefer over another, or is it just preference?
It's totally preference. So like this is a standard 16 ounces. I tell people you should have this at least 2 hours before your activity.
Okay.
As you want 16 to 24 ounces. Kind of typical, these are about 30 to 32 ounces. Sometimes they're a little bit bigger. And then the big one, if you're somebody who really needs a mark, you can get these big ones. This is 64 ounces.
Okay.
And some of them will actually have different marks and lines to try to give you hour by hour that people will use at work. But this is the minimum people should have a day.
Okay, good to know.
But I tell people half an ounce to an ounce per pound of body weight is a good benchmark, you know, depending on the size of your child.
All right, Dr. Brouillette, thank you so much for being here and keeping us and our athletes safe. We so appreciate it.